Hello and welcome to the Ensemble PSG podcast. I'm your host, Ed, and on today's show, we're talking all about PSG's win over Toulouse, preview the Champions League tie against Liverpool. We've got a new Mbappé interview to get into and a lot more. But before I'm joined by my guests, remember that you can subscribe to Ensemble PSG on Substack for more podcast episodes and great content. Just visit psgtalk.substack.com to get started. All right, joining me today is one of our subscribers returning for his second appearance. We've got Tyler. Tyler, welcome back to the show. How are things on your end?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Ed. Glad to be on the show again. It was a pleasure to record the first episode. It's been great, especially after I think, finally hit some attacking form in the PSG squad. So glad to see we're finally playing better than I think the last episode. But yeah, really excited for Tuesday and been just enjoying watching the midfield and attack kind of start to gel finally.
Yeah, I think things have definitely turned around since the last time we talked. And sorry, my phone just rang, so if that came through in the recording, apologies for that, everyone. But since the last time you were on, I was mentioning before we recorded, we had great feedback. So I wanted to make sure to have you back on now that things are moving in the right direction. Now PSG are scoring some goals, so let's get into it. Because we got a lot of ground to cover, including, I didn't mention in the intro, we're going to talk about an update to that Netflix story, which you brought to my attention maybe a month or so ago. And so we had an update to that as well. We'll get into all of that. But let's start. We're recording on April 6th, but last Friday, PSG, they returned to Ligue 1 action and defeated Toulouse at the Parc des Princes 3-1. Dembele had a brace. Gonzalo Ramos did what he always does, and that is score a stoppage time goal. So just looking back at that game, what were some of your big takeaways from that win?
Yeah, I think it was a solid performance from the squad all around. I think we started the game a bit slowly, maybe those first 10 minutes, but after the initial onslaught from Toulouse, we found our footing and we saw that spectacular volley from Dembele that got things started. I think it was good to see Beraldo in the midfield. I noticed that the previous Ligue 1 game and thought he looked pretty well. And once I started thinking about it behind the scenes, I was like, oh, that does make sense. He's got the physical profile to just overpower people in the midfield, but also a great passing ability and instincts on the defensive side of things. A little worried about Safanov, if I'm being honest. I thought the goal was completely his fault. He had that failed header on the long ball to concede the corner, saved by Zabarny, and then off the corner, mishandles it and gives up a sloppy goal. So I'm a bit worried about him going into Wednesday against Liverpool, but I feel like the other 10 players on the pitch played well and I think a very deserving victory and showed or gave me a lot of confidence, at least in the 10 outfield players to perform well against Liverpool.
I'm glad you brought up Lucas Beraldo. He's a player that a lot of fans are sort of, whenever there's a goal let in, he's usually playing at center back, maybe left back, and he's usually someone that people point out to blame. He's not, I would say, what I would call a fan favorite. I would love to know how did he impress Luis Enrique enough to start in the midfield of all places? Like, I would love to know how that ended up. Did he ask? Did Luis Enrique not have many choices because Fabian Ruiz is out injured and maybe Zaire-Emery needs a little bit of a break? So he said, well, let's just give it a try, and it worked out. I'd love to know how that all ended up happening because I think you're right. He really seems fit for that role. He's a great passer. And I thought he played really well against Toulouse. And for the opponent, Toulouse, I'll say, credit to them for coming to the park and really giving it a go. They didn't sit back. They tried to score. They put PSG under pressure. Definitely with you, concerned about Safanov. I think if Chevalier is not going to be the guy, I think Safanov is showing he's solid, but is he that world-class goalkeeper? He's going to be consistent and deliver titles. We'll see. We'll see how the rest of the season plays out, but definitely calls for concern.
Yeah, I completely agree. And that Baraldo conversation is definitely interesting. I think I saw a tweet come out about Tuchel putting Marquinhos in the CDM in that 2019-2020
I
season,
remember
and they
that.
kind
Yeah,
of mirrored the Baraldo journey. But I think he has a great personality. I think every picture you see of him on social media, he's got the largest smile imaginable. And center back, we've all seen that he's not he's not elite. He's not a world class center back. Just doesn't have the pace, doesn't have the physicality. But he had always that great passing vision and just touch on his passes that I saw the upside in him, but didn't fully trust him at center back, and especially at the young age. So I thought he could maybe grow some strength, maybe get a bit faster to become a starting center back or left back. But I think the transition to like a defensive midfielder role was perfect. And I think Lucho probably was thinking about it for a while, especially with our injuries we've seen in the midfield. And we finally have some leeway in Ligue 1 to rotate the squad a bit more, getting that 4 point cushion with a game in hand against Lens. So I would expect that Lucho plays that quite a few more games the rest of Ligue 1 because we really just have to beat Lens in that fixture that got delayed for us to really secure the championship there.
absolutely. Yeah, and I think Luis Enrique had a quote about he wants, players who can play and slide in really anywhere. He doesn't want just a striker or just a midfielder. He wants guys that he can move around. So I think that plays into what we're talking about with Beraldo. He seems to be able to play a little left back. Maybe he's not elite. He can play a little center back if you need him to, and apparently he can now play in the midfield. So you also mentioned the Dembele goal. That volley was certainly one of his best goals that he scored for any club, any league. I mean, that goal was just sensational. I mean, just to have the wherewithal to even attempt something like that. I mean, that could have gone like if you or I tried to do that, that ball is ending up somewhere on the sideline. I mean, just speaks to the immense quality and having him score a goal like that. We'll get to the Liverpool game, but having him score a goal like that is got to do a lot for his confidence.
Yeah, 100%. I was watching the game on Friday with my older brother and my girlfriend, and I think it was a cross to Hakimi trying to find Kavara in the box, and it got kicked out. And I was like, oh, that was a wasted opportunity. And then I see the ball just slowly floating to Dembele, and in the most nonchalant way ever, he doesn't really even get a run up, just kind of throws his foot at the ball, it goes top corner, and then doesn't even really celebrate. So I love to see the Ballon d'Or winner with full confidence, proving that he's still the best player in the world. And yeah, I'm very happy to see that he's finding that top form again once we get into the nitty gritty portion of the season.
And then Gonzalo Ramos comes on late, and he does what he always does: is scores a late goal, and put the game out of reach. And but Toulouse was pressing forward; they were pushing for a goal, and I think it was definitely needed that goal from Gonzalo Ramos. And I don't know what his long term future is. Like, is he good with this role of just being a bench player and coming in and scoring these goals at the end of the games? I don't know if he's going to be super thrilled with that, but the more goals he scores, I just see that transfer fee going up and up. So, like I said, I don't know what the future holds, but love to have him in the team at least for this season. We'll see what the future holds. So he came on. We saw Nuno Mendes made an appearance, Vitinha, Jean Neves as well. So solid performance all around. And that game happened, and then the weekend got even better for PSG following the win. We saw Lens, they lost to Lille 3-0. So PSG now moves 4 points clear with a goal in hand. And then we've got PSG's next opponent, Liverpool. They lost over the weekend 4-0 to Manchester City in the quarterfinals of the FA Cup. Complete just domination there. So let's turn our attention to Liverpool. PSG, they're going to host Liverpool on Wednesday. It's a rematch of last season's round of 16 clash, which, if you remember, PSG won on penalties. It was an exhilarating tie. Let me just ask you simply, Tyler, what is your confidence level heading into this match?
That's a great question. I think as a PSG fan that's watched Champions League nights over the past 10, 15 years, I can never say I'm very confident. in PSG advancing in a UCL quarterfinal, even after the great season we had last year. So, but I'm not very confident in Liverpool's abilities. I've looked at their kind of social media hubs, and a lot of Liverpool fans are really dreading this match on Wednesday. But that being said, whenever you are the favorite in the UCL, I feel like I never want to be the favorite. I prefer being the underdog. But if I had to put a number on it, I would say 75% confidence, because I really don't think Liverpool's even close to the side that they were last year, and they won't have Allison to stand on his head to prevent some close goals in this coming
That's right.
tie.
Yeah, he's out injured and he'll miss this tie. So yeah, they won't have their goalkeeper. Also, similar to the Chelsea situation, where that's a club with a new manager, a little bit in turmoil. Enzo Fernandez is talking about wanting to go to Madrid. Like, there's who knows what's going on behind the scenes. There's a lot going on at Liverpool as well. Like you mentioned, the social media. I think a lot of their fans are protesting. I think there's a protest planned because of the ticket prices. They're really upset with ownership. So they're angry with the manager and the results. I think they're maybe fifth in the Premier League last time I looked. So yeah, they're not a happy bunch, but I think they will be motivated, not only because of last season when PSG knocked them out, but having that game against Lens pushed back and PSG getting a perceived favorable decision on that and allowed to have extra rest. I think they're I think the players are going to play with a little bit of an edge there. They're going to want to beat PSG and send a message. I think that will give them a little bit of extra motivation. But you're right. On paper, I think looking at the two squads and the managers and how they play, PSG should win this match. I'm going to ask you a question that one of our Discord members asked me, and I answered it in a recent article on Ensemble PSG. But I'll pose it to you. How does PSG lose to Liverpool? What can they do to limit PSG's strengths?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I was actually thinking about this right before we hopped on the podcast. I really see three scenarios outside of giving away a PK that we really lose this tie. I don't think their defense is going to stop us from scoring. And I really only see them scoring one of three different ways. Obviously, PSG over the past, or really under Lucho, we've been susceptible to corners. So I think Liverpool, they've got Van Dijk, they've got Konate, they've got some big boys in the box that can score off of a set piece.
We saw it against Toulouse. That's how they scored off a set piece.
Yeah, so I think that's one major area, but I don't know how many set pieces will hopefully give up to them. I think another aspect there is we really are a lot of the goals we've conceded in the Champions League and really the big matches have just been misplaced balls in our own half. So being a little careless playing around the back, I think could get us hurt if I think we've seen it at least twice this season, a bad Nuno Mendes switch that just gets intercepted in the middle of the pitch in our own final third gets taken advantage of. And then something I've been thinking about as well is we need to be careful of those central set pieces, because I think Dominic the Hungarian is what I'll call him because I can't pronounce his last name.
Number
Is
eight.
yeah, number 8 for Liverpool, Dominic from Hungary. He's probably the best free kick taker in the world at the current moment, from what I've seen, and so I think he could. I've got Hungarian descent, so maybe a little biased to the Hungarians, but I think he's actually a really good player. And if we give up a free kick 20, 35 yards out, even, he can really hurt us on that. But otherwise, those are really the only three ways I see Liverpool scoring. I think Bayern's really the only team that can kind of go toe to toe with us in beautiful, attacking, fun to watch football. Um, so I think we're gonna have to make some mistakes, I think, for Liverpool to beat us over two ties.
You mentioned Allison's going to be out. I'm wondering if he's going to transfer his superpower, his PSG superpower, and give it to Ekatike. We know that former PSG players love to score against us, and I wonder if he's gonna give all that power to Ekitike, and does he go off against us at the park against his former club? Certainly possible. But he's a player with immense quality. He won't be afraid of playing at the Parc des Princes. So something to keep an eye on there. Mo Salah, he's announced that he's going to be leaving Liverpool. Is he ready for his, Champions League career at Liverpool to end right now? He certainly is a world-class player. Is he capable of doing something special against our defense? Absolutely. I think that's a way that Liverpool could score. Set pieces, like you said, I love that Dominic from Hungary. I think I've watched him a few times. He's a high quality player. I think he could certainly be dangerous. Not too worried about their fullbacks. I think PSG definitely had the advantage there. But in Van Dijk and Konate, they have two really good center backs. So that's going to be difficult to beat them. They're lots of quality and experience. So this will be a really good battle. I think you definitely give PSG the edge, but I think for all the reasons you pointed out and a few that I did, I think there are some avenues where you could see Liverpool winning. In my piece that I wrote, I said that PSG really need to win this one. Remember last season they lost 1-0, and it was a goal that came in late for Liverpool, and PSG really should have won that. I mean, they outplayed. They had more XG. I think they need to take advantage of those opportunities. And if they can get a maybe I'll be greedy, a 3-goal lead like we saw against Chelsea, that makes going to Anfield and all that mystique and all that makes it so much easier. And PSG will force Liverpool to come out a little bit more, and then PSG will be able to do what they do best, hit on the counter, take advantage, and see this one out. If it's 1-1 or, no real advantage for PSG either way, going to Anfield is going to be difficult. It was difficult last season when they were more rested and really flying high. Having to go do that again and really needing to get a result, it's a lot to ask of this team, and I do worry if they're going to be possible to be able to do that. So let me ask you about starting lineup. Give me who you think will start for PSG, and do you think Fabian Ruiz is he going to be at least able to make the bench? You think? What do you think?
Yeah, I've been trying to stay up to date on all the Fabian news, and I think at most he'll get on the bench if we're close in this first tie, maybe in the 70th, 75th minute. Maybe Lucho puts him on since we don't have another game between the second leg. But I don't think he's going to play substantial minutes longer than 20 minutes, really. And in terms of the full starting 11, I think it's going to be the same front three as the UCL final. Kvara, Dembele, Doué. Midfield, it's going to be the same from what we've seen recently. I think it's João Neves, who I think will be one of, if not our most important players on Wednesday. Vitinha and Warren. And then I've been teetering on whether I want Marquinhos or Zabarni to start at right center back. Otherwise, I think the rest of the back four is pretty predictable, and I think Safanov will be in goal. I think what we saw in the last round of the Champions League, starting a different goalkeeper for their first time in a few matches in the Champions League is not a good idea. Chelsea tried it, Tottenham tried it, and they both conceded quite a few goals in pretty suspect manners. So I think Safanov's got to start. But since our last podcast, I was quite a big, I would say, Zabarni hater, just had a lot of grievances against him. But since we recorded, I think he's really kind of proven himself. I think he's a lot better than what we saw at the beginning of the year. He's still not the fastest, still, I think, a little clumsy, but has shown on the ball he's a lot more versatile than what he showed earlier on in the season. He can play a great long ball. He can find people through. He can break the lines. And that was really, in my opinion, Marquinhos's biggest advantage over him, because Marquinhos over these past 2 years, his speed and pace has just really declined a lot. So I think they're probably neck and neck in terms of pace. Zavarni's got the height and the strength on him, and I don't know. I don't know if I trust although we won the Champions League last year, Marquinhos, I don't know if he has that big game captain mentality that we see from some of the greatest captains ever. Um, doesn't he just doesn't instill confidence anymore. He has the mistake that he can produce, and I think just isn't great at calming the rest of the squad down even when he tries.
What do you think? Just the fact that Marquinhos has gone up against Ekitike probably in training several times. Do you think maybe that tips the scales in his favor? Just being more familiar with him.
A little bit, but I was thinking about how we're gonna defensively line up. I think Pacho's gonna really be man marking Ekitike most of the game, which I think will be good for us. I was kind of thinking back to the Chelsea game, how we man marked in that first leg and how we're likely going to match up against Liverpool. I think Pacha's going to be on Ekitike and follow him around most of the pitch. I think Nuno's obviously going to be on Salah, which I think is a favorable matchup for us. And then I think Zhao should be either on Dominic from Hungary or Verts. I think those are probably the two creative engines of this Liverpool squad. And I think Neves is one of the pestiest players to play against. He's just always right on you, nipping at your ankles, putting his forearm in your back, making you uncomfortable. So I think he needs to be on one of the two and probably put Hakimi on the other. Um, so I think Marquinhos, he could man mark Ekitike, but I'd prefer Pacho. And just thinking about the rest of the Liverpool squad, I don't know who he would really match up against if we're really going man to man marking. Maybe if Gakpo starts, but I know a lot of Liverpool fans who despise Gakpo, and there are some rumors that Isak may be fit to play. I don't think he'll start, but I think he could get subbed on in that 60th or 70th minute, especially if they're losing. Um, so I think that's something else we just have to be slightly careful of. But it's his first game in 3 to 4 months, coming off of he broke something in his leg, so not an easy injury to get rid of. So I don't think Isak, if he plays a big part, but obviously he could prove me wrong because I think he's a great player.
Yeah, I mean, make no question about it. They've got the talent. Of course, with PSG, we've got to worry about not only Fabian Ruiz if he's going to make the squad. Bradley Barcola, he's been out. We don't know. I doubt he's going to start. So yeah, I think you're going to have Dembele, Kvaratskhelia, and Doué probably leading the line, which is still a fantastic front line for PSG. Kvaratskhelia is in great form. We talked about Dembele in that goal, so I really I like what we've got, even with Barcola out. We'll see. Maybe he can be on a bench player if they bring in Isak. Hey, I feel pretty good bringing in Barcola late in the match if we need a goal, or hey, Gonzalo Ramos for that matter. Before we get off of this topic, Tyler, I got to get a prediction for Wednesday. How do you see this one going?
I I hate to be confident going into UCL games, but I really see no no way that Liverpool beats us at the park, and I think we could really end this tie on Wednesday. So I would guess either a 3-0, 4-1. I think we really put it to them. I think Luis Enrique is a much better coach than Arnie Slot. I think people have probably seen some of the jokes online that Arnie Slot can't stop talking about PSG since that loss
Yes.
last
Yeah.
year. And they really haven't been the same team since then. They've really found some terrible form and lost their identity, so to say, in terms of playing. So I think we've got the better coach, we've got the better squad, we're in the better form. I really think it would take some major mistakes or flukes for us to at least lose on Wednesday.
Boy, that is bold. I In my heart, that's what I want to happen. I would love nothing more. My head is telling me this might be a little closer than I would like. I still like PSG to win. I'll go. I'm gonna go 2-0. I'll go 2-0. I think they'll get a clean sheet. I think they'll clean up the mistakes from the Toulouse match. I think Pacho will be on his game and man marking, keep Ekitike quiet. So I'll go 2-0, a nice, comfortable two goal lead heading into Anfield, and then we'll see what happens there. We'll get to that prediction when it comes. And of course, PSG will have no games in between the ties. So that'll be nice. They'll be well rested for that one. Um, let's switch gears because we've got a Kylian Mbappe interview to talk about. Usually I wouldn't bring up Kylian Mbappe because he's not a PSG player, but he did mention some his time at PSG and he talked about Luis Enrique. So let me read a few of his quotes and then I'll get your reaction. So when he was asked about Luis Enrique, he said, quote, "He's a great coach. He truly speaks his mind. Unfortunately, I had him during my final year on my contract with PSG, and my last year was a roller coaster. I couldn't really enjoy my time with them. I was sidelined for the first month. When I decided to leave, I barely played in the league during my final 4 months. I enjoyed it as a football fan and from a tactical standpoint, but in my situation at the time, I couldn't truly enjoy it. He's a coach who knows a lot." So I'll pause there. Just his quote about Luis Enrique and his time at PSG's last season. What are your reaction to that?
Yeah, that's not a bad quote for Mbappe. I have not been the biggest fan of him since he left, but I think he had to do what he had to do and show respect to Luis Enrique, especially after we won the Champions League without him. And him kind of talking about the bad parts of his last season, how he couldn't really enjoy it, and that's really no fault but his own. And I guess you can maybe place some blame on us and Nasser for giving him that ginormous contract with the 1 year extension that wasn't needed. So we kind of we probably kept him longer than he wanted to be there, which could be our fault, but at the end of the day, it was his choice and we had a great squad that year. I think we made it to the semifinals and had some terrible luck against Dortmund in the semifinals. And I think it would have been one of the matches of the century if we could have played Real Madrid in the UCL final that year, the year before he goes there. So I think him talking bad about it, it's his fault. If he doesn't want to stay with the squad, obviously the coach is going to play people that want to be on the team. I think you can recognize that at all levels of sport, even in youth soccer or basketball in the United States. If kids aren't committed, they aren't going to play. And so if you're a professional footballer making the most money out of anybody in most sports, you're expected to show some commitment, and he wasn't committed to the coach or the team in terms of at least long-term goals. So I think it was his fault, and I think he's kind of seeing the consequences. Real Madrid, their really only hope to have a successful season is against Bayern Munich, who I think are probably apart from PSG, the strongest team in the world right now. And if they lose that, they're 7 points behind Barca in La Liga, already out of the Copa del Rey. So he could go 2 full seasons with Real Madrid without winning a major trophy besides the Intercontinental Cup that he wasn't a part of when they won the Champions League. So I think he may be regretting his decisions, but I think he has that CR7 esque ego gene, which I think a lot of the best players do need to have. You have to think you're the best to be the best, but I don't know. I don't think he fit with our squad, and I think he's kind of seeing the consequences of some of his previous actions.
Yeah, with Real Madrid losing over the weekend to Mallorca 2-1, I think
Hmm.
it's pretty much solidified that they're probably not going to win La Liga, and the fans there, Real Madrid, are very upset. You see it in the media, the Spanish media there, and then a lot of the fans. So he's definitely feeling it right now. That spotlight that that really at Real Madrid it really gets turned up. So with his quotes, I find him a little bit curious. I wrote about this today. He talks about I was sidelined for the first month. Is he talking about the preseason tour because he was demoted, to the loft, quote unquote? So is he talking about that? Like that really had a big impact because he only missed the first game of the season against Lorient, and then he was reinstated and playing. He didn't miss. If we're talking about the first month of the real season, I mean that's not true. And then he says, "I barely played in the league during his final months." I mean, I looked it up, and he started in 24 of 34 League On matches and was substituted in five others, substituted on. And then in the final 4 months of the season, February to May, he was only left out of 3 of 15 League On matches and featured in every Champions League and Coupe de France match. So I don't barely played. No, you weren't. And then the beginning of the season, you only missed one game while we kind of figured out what you were doing. So that doesn't make any sense. It's not true. And then we saw that viral video come out of Luis Enrique sitting Mbappe down and saying, "Hey, you like Michael
Yep.
Jordan? You got to defend. This is what you got to do." Luis Enrique clearly knew that Mbappe was going to leave, but was still putting in the time to make him a better player. That should have told Mbappe something. That should have told him, "Hey, this guy really cares and he's trying to make me the Michael Jordan of this sport. Maybe I should really take that to heart and think about the decision." I think he ultimately sort of had blinders on and said, "Hey, when I was a kid, my goal was to go to Monaco, PSG, Real Madrid." And nothing could deter him from that, even when it was abundantly clear he probably should have stayed at PSG once Luis Enrique came in. He looked around, his best friend Hakimi's in the team. He should have seen the pieces coming together and said, maybe I want to think twice about this move. And as you pointed out, now he's at Real Madrid and he might go 2 seasons without any major silverware. And that's a decision he's going to have to live with. So that's sort of my reaction to the quote. But then he went on, someone finally asked him a question that I have been wanting someone to ask him, which is his thoughts about PSG winning the Champions League the season right after his departure. And this is what he had to say. He said, quote, "If I had left earlier and they had won, I think there would have been some resentment. But when I left, I felt like I had reached the end of the book. 7 years, I'd done it all. It didn't make sense to continue." And I think the glaring statement there is, I had done it all. Well, no, you didn't. No, you didn't. There was a big trophy that PSG had never won, and you could have been the guy to deliver it to the club that you grew up watching, to the club of your home city. You hadn't done it all. So I don't know why you would say that, but what is your reaction to it?
Yeah, I think that's quite funny because if he would have left a year or two before, that's when we still had Messi, Neymar, and we were still fully fledged into the bling bling era. But I think without Mbappe in that squad, I think we would have honestly done a bit better in the UCL. I think both years we had Messi, we got knocked out in the round of 16. And I don't know if it's fully confirmed, but there was always, I think, rumors that Messi and Mbappe didn't really see eye to eye. And there was some arguments over whose team it really was. And in 2022, I think we had a good chance at winning until that Winter World Cup. I think that we were playing so well pre Qatar World Cup, and then post Qatar World Cup, Mbappe, Messi played each other in the final. Hakimi made it to the semifinals and third place game. A lot of our important players just made it really deep into the tournament and didn't have a lot of rest and also played against each other. And so I think that really killed the squad camaraderie. But if he would have left during one of those seasons, I think we would have done better. I don't know if we would have won the Champions League, especially with Pochettino or Galtier. Don't really think they're Champions League level winning coaches. But I think, yeah, to say that he had done everything at PSG, we were so close to beating Dortmund in the UCL semifinal the year he left and would have made it to our second final. And that Real Madrid squad was good. That was when Jose Lu was starting up front. Vinny Jr. was having his almost Ballon d'Or season. And they would have been a tough squad to beat. But with how we played and how we controlled the tempo, even in Lucho's first year, I think we would have had a good shot at winning that game. So I think after seeing that, I was really disappointed because I think he announced his departure shortly after that tie, if I'm not mistaken.
You're right.
A-
Yeah.
And I think with the new coach, with how we were playing, if he would have said, "Hey, I'll sign a 1 year extension after that, I'm gone for sure," I would have respected that a whole lot more because Luis Enrique was really has been his only coach at PSG that has won the Champions League. Obviously, Tuchel won it after he left PSG, but all of the other managers before that were they had never won the big one. Unai Emery won the Europa League, but it's not the it's not the big one. So I don't know. I think he's kind of clownish to say that he won everything for sure, and he would have done us a big I don't know. Actually, I don't know if it would have been a service. I think if he was on our team last year, don't think we would have won it. But um, yeah, it's his choice. He made it, and now he has to live with that choice.
Yeah, I think it's all about decisions. He made a calculated decision, whether it was made years before or that season. We will never really know, but I think he made the decision to go to Real Madrid to elevate his stature in the game. We had Robin Barron write a piece, I think last October. In fact, Mbappe's popularity in France has actually gone down. I wouldn't say that he is a bigger star now that he's at Real Madrid than he was at PSG. So if he went there for that reason, probably had more work to do. And I think he thought if I go there, I can win the Champions League. I get more
Mhm.
eyeballs on me, and I can win the Ballon d'Or. And it just blew up in his face. I mean, not only did PSG win it, then Ousmane Dembele goes on and wins the Ballon d'Or. I mean, it is everything that could go wrong once he made that decision to leave could go wrong. And it was for a PSG fan, it was just really just great to watch. But if you're Mbappe or in his camp, like you just got to be sick to your stomach. And so with these quotes, I don't know what else he could really say. I mean, we all kind of know probably how he truly feels deep down, but yeah, it just blew up.
Yeah, and the Dembele's breakout season, I think, was the perfect kind of mirror to the Mbappe departure. They were both coming up in European football at the same time, two of the best electric, young, fast French wingers, two of the best prospects we've seen in the past 10 years. And obviously, Mbappe had his foot on the gas really the entire time, was scoring goals, making big plays, won the World Cup, had a fantastic tournament, and really was scoring a bunch. And Dembele kind of had the opposite trajectory, was at Barcelona, another powerhouse, but constantly getting injured, constantly kind of fluffing his lines in the final moment. And for a while, everybody was like, they were trying to compare him when they were coming up, like who's going to be better. And everybody said Mbappe's running away with that. And as soon as they depart and Dembele has his own team where he has the full confidence of the coach and the confidence of the team behind him, shows that he can win anything on his own. And Mbappe just hasn't shown that. He's a spectacular player, one of the best players I've ever seen, especially maybe 3, 4 years ago. He was phenomenal. Like that World Cup final against Argentina, my jaw was on the floor after that volley he scored. Like, oh, he's really about to give Messi nightmares for the rest of his life. But he just hasn't been able to fully deliver on his potential. And I think Usman's stayed quiet, stayed relatively humble, and has become PSG's French star that we wanted Mbappe to become. Usman's delivered on all of Mbappe's failed promises, is a good way to put it.
And you know, I love my comparisons to American sports. I'm going to go NBA. I mean, Mbappe is definitely trending in the James Harden category of elite scorer, one of the best we've seen in the game. Not a whole bunch of trophies in that cabinet to show for it. That's sort of the way he's going, in my opinion. Whereas you talk about Dembele, maybe he's more of a SGA type or a Jason Tatum. These guys who are really good and they deliver and they play that sort of they can fit into a cohesive team and win big titles. So yeah, if you're new to PSG and listening
Yeah.
to this, there's your American NBA reference for you. Um,
Yeah. Just to add on that,
yeah,
I would like to compare Dembele maybe a little more to a Giannis.
there you go.
Was kind of a raw talent starting off in his career, but slowly developed his skill. And when Giannis won the finals in 2021, just completely dominated, but also had his full squad behind him. The chemistry was unreal. Him, Chris Middleton, Brooke Lopez, Drew Holiday. They just had a lot of dogs on their team that were willing to do the dirty work. And I think it's kind of how Usman's trajectory went, was a really raw talent at Rennes, Dortmund, and even early on at Barcelona. And then once he came to PSG and didn't have Mbappe on the team, the squad really fully backed him and his abilities, and he led from the front.
Yeah, I think leader is a good way to describe Dembele. He set the tone with his pressing, and that just filters throughout the rest of the squad. So let's leave that conversation there because we want to get to news that came out about the rumored Netflix documentary. This is something that we heard about last summer. I think it was Nasser, PSG's president, had talked about it. It was supposed to chronicle PSG's historic season. But then there's been very little news about when it would actually be available. You actually reached out to me and you were just like, hey, have you heard anything about this Netflix documentary? And so I reached out and to some of my sources, and basically we found out, nope, no news, nobody knows anything really. And then just a few days ago, we finally learned what might be going on, and apparently this documentary has been put on hold due to Luis Enrique limiting access to the players' private lives. And I want to ask you, do you think that's a good move from the manager? And do you think we'll ever see that footage?
Yeah, I personally think as a PSG fan, I think it's a good move from the coach, especially from what I was seeing. They were also following this season. So I think there was some stuff about Chevalier, Zabarni having slow starts to the year. So I think from what I could tell that the documentary would have carried over into this season, and I think releasing anything mid-season would not be a good call. I think if we go back to back, I think we should release it, but um as a American consumer, I would obviously love to see it. I think Netflix has produced some great sports documentaries over the past few years.
What's your favorite
F1.
one? I got to ask you, what's your favorite one?
This might be a sleeper pick, but their series on the Six Nations rugby tournament is honestly
Ooh,
my
solid.
favorite. That
My
really
my
turned,
favorite is the Sunderland one, but go ahead.
yeah, I was just saying it turned me on to rugby as a sport, and even their F1 and NASCAR shows. I was a big NASCAR fan growing up and stopped watching and then saw the Netflix doc and got back into it. So I think production wise, it would be great. And as a PSG fan and consumer, I would love to see the behind the scenes footage, especially of last season. But I think it could be bad for the squad morale, especially if it is releasing on Netflix. I don't think they should release it mid-season. If they ever do, it should be over a summer break, either this summer or even the following summer, um, just to avoid any shenanigans between the players and the coach. But yeah, it would be unfortunate. But I watched a few of I think it was All In on Amazon. They used to follow Premier League teams. I remember one of Arteta's first seasons, they followed Arsenal, they followed Pep City, and it was really interesting and intriguing. But obviously, the Arsenal season didn't pan out well. I think they had a Newcastle season that didn't pan out well. Really, only Pep and Man City, I think, won anything while the cameras were following them. So I don't. We have enough drama as it is with PSG. We take over most of the at least French soccer media outlets in terms of gossip and kind of tabloid news. So I don't think we need any more of that. But as a fan and as a consumer of sports documentaries, I would love to see it.
Yeah, absolutely. Would love to see it. And the fact that Netflix keeps raising the price, it seems like every, 2 hours the price goes up. It would be nice if they delivered on this PSG documentary. Like that's certainly worth the subscription price for me. I would definitely pay that. So for that reason, I would love to see it. But then also, like you said, do we want PSG kind of in the headlines and people watching this and going through and saying, "Oh, Hakimi said this. What does it mean?" All this kind of tabloid stuff. I don't love that. And then on a more serious note, over the years, several PSG players have had their homes broken into, and so you know, I think limiting cameras to their private lives is probably a good thing. I don't think we want to really broadcast that kind of stuff. So, from that point of view, I can see why Luis Enrique would want to step in and stop, or at least limit that. So, I think you're right. If PSG goes back to back, maybe they'll have no other choice but to release what they have. Um, but I think in my gut, I don't think we'll see that footage. So, um, but interesting. I'll have to check out that NASCAR one. And there's so many good sports documentaries on there. I think one of our Discord members, I talked them into watching Last Chance U about junior
Oh yeah.
college football. It's really good. Um,
Yeah.
Tyler, let's wrap up with a little quick fire transfer talk if you're up for it. I'm going to say a
Yeah.
name that has been linked to with a move to PSG, and then you tell me if you think there's genuine interest from the club or you think it's all BS. Are you ready? We got one, two, three. We got like four names here. You ready to
Yep.
go? Okay.
Yep.
We got Frankie De Jong. PSG reportedly offered 55 million in a payment plan, but Barcelona will only accept 70 million. What do you make of that one?
That sounds quite unlikely. Um, I I was a big fan of him when he was at Ajax, but I think at this stage in his career, it's not our MO to sign a midfielder. I guess Fabian, but a midfielder in his late 20s. He's good, but I don't know if he would be a great fit. I would take him maybe as a Fabian replacement, but I don't think it's very likely.
Yeah, especially not 70 million. That seems a bit excessive. Let's stay with Barcelona. Lamine Yamal, PSG, apparently had talked with his agent about a record breaking move. We've seen this one bubble up a few times. Is this just to sell newspapers and get clicks or what?
I think so. Obviously, we don't know what's going through Nasser's brain, and he does love to always kind of be the big brother to Barcelona. So I wouldn't fully rule it out, but I don't see us paying 200 million plus for another transfer. At least while we have Luis Enrique, I think he would be a great fit to the team, maybe as a replacement for Dembele as he's getting into his late 20s. And but I don't think we're gonna shell that cash out. Um, and we'd probably have to give up like a what I've seen is a Due swap, which I would not want to see. So I think it's very doubtful as well.
And we talk about tabloids. He's certainly a player that attracts a lot of attention, and I don't think Luis Enrique wants to deal with that. Here's a little one under the radar. Jan Diomande from RB Leipzig. They're trying to offer him a contract extension to remain at the club for another year. It's been rumored PSG might be interested with some other clubs. He's a winger. What do you make of that move? 19-year-old, I believe.
I saw the rumors. If we can get him for under 20 million, uh, could be good. I haven't watched a lot of him personally, so don't have a very strong opinion on his signing. But I would just say we produced a lot of good attacking talent in our academy as well. I think Mbappé, I would like to keep him around for the near future. And I think if we're getting another winger that's not like a striker, I would probably prefer Akliouche from Monaco. So, but he would probably be more expensive. But yeah, if we can get him for a good price, I would like to see it. But I think our attacking talent's very good outside of a maybe true number nine that can start matches. Um, I think we have some solid wingers and some players from the academy that can step up as well.
And don't forget, PSG and Leipzig have a pretty good working relationship with transfers. Xavi Simmons is one. I'm blanking on some. I know there's other players that have gone back.
Mukiele, I
Yeah,
believe.
Mukiele. Yeah, I think there's even more. So anyway, they apparently they can get business done, and so maybe there's a loan obligation to buy situation. Maybe they can get creative with the numbers. It's possible. I also think, maybe Kang-In Lee, does he leave? You know,
Yeah.
I think there's been some speculation about Mbappé that maybe he goes to a Premier League team. So I think if there's some outgoing, maybe he's a player PSG look at. But all things the same, I think he would cost too much to bring him in, and then what do you do with it? So what do you do with him then? So I don't know. Last one here, big one. Eduardo Camavinga from Real Madrid. There's been some speculation regarding his future. He's sort of like Mbappe, under fire right now for just poor performances. It's come out today that PSG not interested at all, but we know, I think it was 2021, PSG were interested in him when he was at Rennes. So if he is available, what do you think of that? Is that something you think PSG would actually do?
I don't know if it's something we would actually do since he chose Real Madrid over us in 2021, but me personally, I really like his profile and think he would be a really good fit. I really wanted to sign him back in 2021 or 2022. And back when Ancelotti was the Real Madrid coach, Camavinga was kind of notorious for being the plug and play guy, almost what Valverde is now, that can really play almost anywhere and do it somewhat well. And I think that would just be perfect in Luis Enrique's system. We were talking about it earlier. He loves the versatility, especially with Beraldo. So if we can bring in Camavinga, I think he can perform at really any level in the midfield, whether it's holding, box to box, or even a more attacking role. He can, at least for a short time, slot in at the back. And I think he's technically very gifted. He's a big presence. He's physically gifted. He's strong, tall, fast. I think he would be our best physical presence in the midfield. Maybe outside of Warren, he isn't as tall, but I think Warren's just a little. He gives me kind of bowling ball energy. Nobody can outmuscle him. He's just so dense.
Yeah, players
Um,
just bounce off of him.
yeah, but I would like if we could get Camavinga for a good price. I think he would honestly be the perfect Fabian replacement. He's still, I think, under 25, so has a lot of room to grow and mature, and is versatile, is French, um, familiar with Ligue 1, and I think he would fit very well into the squad, but it would have to be for the right price.
Yeah, agree on the price. And, this is why I'm glad I don't run PSG, because I'd be like, no, you turned us down before that, you burn that bridge. You're not coming back. But hopefully, Luis Campos and Luis Enrique a little bit more pragmatic and they can look at it. I think, you mentioned his versatility. I think he could definitely benefit PSG if he were in the squad. He could play a little left back if needed to provide cover. You can move him around the pitch. So I think he fits that profile. He's young, French. So, check there. Got to see what the price would be. And I think he's under contract until 2029. So that transfer fee is probably going to be hefty if he is to force some sort of move, which I don't know if Real Madrid would be willing to entertain. So it's one to keep an eye on, but I would say right now, probably a 10% chance of happening. So we'll have to do this again. That's all the ones that I had come across that I
Yeah.
thought were like somewhat realistic. So as these come up, we'll talk more about transfers as we approach the summer transfer window. But Tyler, we're coming up on time. Do you have any final thoughts as we head into this big match? Anything you want to leave us with?
Yeah, I think we should be very confident or cautiously confident for Wednesday. Obviously, it's the Champions League. We've until last season didn't have this in our DNA, but outside of Marquinhos, it really was a fully different squad from the old guard last season. So I'm really confident in our team. The only worries that I really have at the moment are whoever's playing at right center back. They could have a mistake in there and soften off in goal. I think he just needs to be sharp. Otherwise, we don't need to see a mid-April goalkeeper switch again. I think that would fully derail our season. So as long as Marquinhos or Barney step up in that right center back position, Safinoff just doesn't have any errors, I think we should be fully confident because we have the better chemistry. We have the better squad. I think a lot of Liverpool fans have just talked about how they don't have the chemistry this year. Their back line, even though they have Van Dijk and Konate, just has not been connected. They're extremely disorganized, I think, is what they've been saying between the midfield attack, pressing versus dropping. They they don't have Arnie Slot's system fully figured out at the current moment. So it's our game to lose. I think we need to, as we always do, start the game off on a strong front foot. If we can get an early goal, great. Otherwise, we need to put them under some pressure. And I don't think I'll really start worrying until it's 70, 80 minutes in and we're losing. But I think other than that, I'm going to have some strong confidence in the team, barring any injuries.
I think well said. I think, we know for sure PSG are going to battle to the end. Even if they are down a goal or two, they're going to fight to the end and try to level that up. So I don't have any concern there. I think just don't beat yourself. No stupid mistakes. Don't, drop the ball on a corner or something like that, an easy tap in, or not mark someone for a free header. Let's not beat ourselves. If they outperform us on the pitch, I can live with that, but just don't beat yourself. Don't give away silly penalties. Don't get a silly red card or anything like that. Let's just play the type of football we know we can play. Let's play confidently, no mistakes, and see where things fall then. And I think what we'll find is PSG will likely be ahead because we are the better team and we should be confident in this one. But it'll be entertaining nonetheless. Tyler, thanks so much for coming on. Your second appearance, I think it went very well. We'll have to have you on again. Really appreciate it. And thank you all out there for listening and subscribing. We really appreciate your support. We'll have a lot more on all things PSG, but until next time, bye for now.